I've been asked to talk about global regenerative organic agriculture. And from our perspective, what is very important is that agriculture has to change. Agriculture, as it's currently practiced, is the cause of most of the environmental destruction on our planet, and particularly the chemicals from agriculture are causing serious problems. The pesticides and the fertilizers are causing the collapse of insects, species, of ecosystems, and we also know that they are the main cause of the epidemic of non-contagious chronic diseases. So in 2014, a group of us got together. I was the international president of the organic sector at that time. But we worked with leaders from the agroecology sector, natural health, and other like-minded movements to start a concept to regenerate agriculture. And now it's in the news every day, and we're seeing that agriculture is changing, which is very important. Our organisation that we formed in 2014 as of last year with 533 partners in 74 countries, and we continue to grow. Now let's talk about this change. Professor Lang was very clear that when we move to organic agriculture, we have to do things differently. And the most important one here is to talk about how do we replace these fertilizers and pesticides. And the most important thing for us is to build soil fertility. And the way we build it is through photosynthesis, because when plants photosynthesize, they take carbon dioxide, which is the main greenhouse gas, out of the air, and they combine it with water, and they create glucose. And glucose is the main molecule of life. All of our cells, every living organism, pretty well every living organism, there's a few that don't. Every living organism uses glucose as their energy source. Every cell needs glucose. When plants grow, they take about 30% of these glucose products, these organic molecules, and they feed the soil microbiome through their roots. And we call this the liquid carbon pathway, or the carbon gift. And this is a picture of these root secretions. You can see it from the root tip, these organic molecules that are made from glucose. And what they do is they feed the soil microbiome. And, and we use that now to grow fertility. So this is an example of our farm. My wife and I, we are organic farmers who have been farming organically for more than 50 years. And this is our rambutan orchard. And everybody thinks we're letting the weeds grow. We're very bad farmers. What are we doing? This is called a cover crop. And by using the products of photosynthesis, all those molecules now are going into the soil and feeding the soil microbes to build our fertility, so we don't need to put fertilizers on it. This is our soil in the dry season. So what you saw is in the monsoon, we grow the cover crop, let it get tall. We cut it or graze it in the dry season. And in 11 years, we took our organic matter levels up from less than 1% to an average of 6%. In some places, it's 9%. We increased all our minerals. I'm not going to read them all out, but you can read there quicker than I can speak. How things like calcium, it's many times more. Phosphorus, magnesium. We didn't buy that. The biology did it. When we feed the biology, they make it available. Very importantly here, I just want to show you a picture of a root of a legume. That's pinto peanut. You have that here. It goes into the subsoil and you can see the exudates, the carbon exudates, feeding the soil and changing it and deepening it and making it fertile. This is an example of another innovation in Australia, and Peter Randall will show you how he uses this principle with organic rice. So listen very carefully on how we can do this. We call this pasture cropping. Instead of ploughing out the pasture, we cut it down low. In fact, like Peter, he uses sheep and grazes it down very low, and then plants, these are oats, and plants the oat crop in. Now he gets the same yield as his neighbours. He puts no fertiliser on, he sprays no pesticides, he doesn't spend a fortune on diesel to plough up the land, he doesn't disturb it. He gets the same yield as his neighbours in oats, but when he takes the oats off now, he can put his sheep back on, so he now gets double the income. He gets the income from the oats, income from the sheep. He makes it, and his costs are much less. He's a very profitable farmer and a very good farmer. Very importantly, when we talk about soil fertility, this is his soil, and this is his brother's soil. It's the same farm. They inherited it from their father, and they put a fence down the middle. And you can see a little bit of organic matter here. But here with the pasture cropping, look at all that organic matter, all those glucose compounds that feed the soil microbiome and build it up. And have a look at all these minerals, the increase. He didn't buy fertilizers. So what I'm showing you here is how we change the system. It's what we call by regenerative agriculture, regenerative organic. We build up the soil and we get good crops for a fraction of the price, and we don't damage the environment. This is the other really important issue here as we go into climate change. We think it's actually, we should call it climate disruption for farmers. We get more and more droughts. They're longer, they're stronger, but when the rain comes at the wrong time, and it's usually very destructive. The secret to that is, once again, to build up the soil organic matter. If you've got 1% soil organic matter, you can hold about 160,000 litres in the first 30 centimetres. Any more rain just runs off usually into the rivers as mud and damages them. You take it up to 6%, and I put 6% there because on our farm, which is a tropical climate like Vietnam, we're actually the same latitude as Hawaii. It's, but we're southern hemisphere. We got up to 6%. We can hold a megalitre per hectare of rain. Think about that. You don't need big irrigation systems. You can capture that rain and you can store it. And this is a very good example of how this works. This is a scientific experiment on a research station, the Randall Institute in the USA. And this is organic agriculture and standard industrial agriculture using chemicals. It's the same soil, the same climate, it's the same variety of corn. But the difference is, because this strip here, through management, built up soil organic matter, it is not affected by the drought. And very importantly now, there's 40 years of this study that we know that organic agriculture in drought years gets an average of 30% higher than the industrial systems. So I want to get rid of this notion that organic is lower yielding. Good organic, we get equal and higher yields now. There are other systems like this we call regenerative or holistic grazing, where grazing is one of the areas that causes some of the most degradation because it's done badly. But we can change it and we can regenerate ecosystems and we can trap water. So I want to show you this one. This is 2006. They had 200 cattle on this farm. Because of the wrong management, it caused degradation. By 2009, this ranch now is beautifully regenerated. The forests are coming back. There's lots of pasture. And I took this picture a year ago at the same ranch in Zimbabwe. And you can see the grass. You can see this mosaic of biodiversity. They've doubled the amount of livestock. 200 was causing problems. Now 400 is not a problem. They're actually going to get 200 more and go up to 600. They actually have a herd of elephants. They have lots of, very importantly, a lot of native wildlife can coexist. So we can regenerate these ecosystems by changing our management. It's management. The other one is how do we replace pesticides? Once again, we use agroecology. We use the science of ecology. And in this case, what we do is we put in host plants into the system. Instead of spraying things out as weeds and killing things, we can bring in functional biodiversity. Most beneficial insects, these are the insects that control our pests, have host plants. They live on flowers. So here's an example of what we call the little parasitoids, parasitic wasps. And as adults, they need nectar and pollen to reproduce. Without it, they can't reproduce. Then the female will lay her eggs in or on the caterpillar here, and they hatch and they can control the caterpillars. And we can bring these in by putting flowers in the system. So this is our orchard again, and this is a rambutan orchard. And we have flowers. And a lot of these are in Vietnam. For instance, a lot of people think of it as a weed, Singapore daisy. You use it underneath the trees. I put that, and I have pinto peanut here. These are all plants you have. Put them into the system, and we get perfect fruit. We used to export rambutans to Japan, and anybody knows what it's like to export to Japan. They are the fussiest for quality. We got the quality, we got the yield. But it also works as living mulch, conserves water. We've got legumes in here, so we get a lot of nitrogen. And of course, we're using the sunlight that our crop isn't using to capture sunlight, the photosynthesis, so that this now is feeding our soils with glucose, building the fertility that we can turn into fruit. This is another example of how we can do it, and it can be done very well with rice, where we can add in plants like this is desmodium, it's a legume, and what it will do is repel the borers, the corn borers. It will repel the pests in rice. On the outside of our fields, we put in what we call a trap crop. And the moth will go in there and will lay its eggs. But this native grass, which you have growing wild here, or other forms in the genus Pennisekium, they have a defense. They have little hairs, silica hairs, and sticky gums. So when the little caterpillars hatch, they die. So we break the cycle. Similarly, they put out compounds that cause the suicidal germination of weed seeds. So we can, and it's a legume. It gives us all our nitrogen and it protects it. So this is an example. The traditional system, this is in Africa, this is a terrible parasitic weed, looks lovely, called striga, but it parasites the roots. And then you've got also the damage from the corn borer. put in the desmodium and look at the difference, up to 10 times the yield. And this we call functional biodiversity. It's now being used in all sorts of crops. So here's a chili crop. This is a mango crop. We can use these systems in any farming system. So instead of spraying out, ploughing out, what we do now is adding functional biodiversity that gives us all these benefits. New composting systems, very simple ones. Anyone can make it. A little bit of weld mesh, shade cloth, and with this particular system. And I want to show you the yields. This is standard cotton using 150 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare, which is very expensive. It's far more than usually used on rice here. This is when we put the compost on. No synthetic fertilizer. 3 times the yield. And any farmer can make this, any size, the smallest to the largest, and use it. SRI. I know you've tried it, that you need to do more work. In terms of, we have really good evidence that we can take an average of 2 to 3 tonnes. Average yields tend to be about 7 tonnes, but 6, 8, 10 tonnes. There's even super yields they're getting in Madagascar now at 23 tonnes a hectare with organic rice with this. Very importantly, I wanted to show you, this is where a typhoon has hit Hanoi, the province outside of Hanoi, and you can see by building this strong rice, it has not been affected. It has not been pushed down. They will get the yield, whereas the conventional industrial, that crop is wasted. It's sitting on the ground. Those rice heads will go rotten. So I just want to end on this slide now, because this is, most farms in Vietnam are small farms. And this is a lovely one because it's on 2 acres, that's less than a hectare. And what they've done, this is our no-till. Instead of ploughing up, they're planting compost and mulch. And they now get very, very high yields. In fact, this farm employs 8 people. They make $200,000 US per acre. And so no toxic chemicals. So what I want to show you here is, a lot of people, there's this idea of smallholder farmers are too small, we've got to aggregate them. They actually started off with 40 acres. They realised that running 2 acres intensively earned them more money. And this is a model that Vietnam should use. Instead of trying to consolidate and make farms bigger, help family farms. The majority of Vietnamese farmers become profitable by adopting these new techniques. And this is where I want to say that I want to show you a story of hope, that where we're going, our new regenerative organic techniques are the future of agriculture, and it is a wonderful future. So thank you.
Xin có một trình bày của giáo sư Alan Broughton.